prepared a whistleblower policy for Nigeria and sent it to government, and government happily adopted it. I'm going to try and clarify and set the context of what the policy covers, exactly what we intended, which government approved and adopted, and how it is meant to work, and hopefully also try and remove some of the fog from some of the issues. Let's start with what really is our obligation. Citizens have a duty to report crime. Now, historically, for reasons that Mr. Falana has very ably explained, there was some reluctance to do so, because when a government is embarrassed, they can exhume any kind of legislation to charge one with. But there's a duty to report crime. If citizens don't report crime, law enforcement agencies cannot do their job very well. They are not spirits, they are not everywhere. We've got to give them information. And that duty is both moral and legal. It enhances the rule of law, it enhances peace and security. We know what corruption does to us, so I'm not going to waste time on how corruption undermines our development. And Nigeria's recession, economic recession, is one that has been corruption provoked, indeed, because we did not save for a rainy day, because all of the money that was earned when everything was going well was virtually stolen. We've also seen that corruption pushed and escalated insurgency in Nigeria and almost cost us a whole geopolitical zone. So the effect of what corruption has done, I don't want to go into it. Everybody knows that corruption is the biggest problem, hindering social development, health, education, infrastructure, you name it. So if you don't fight corruption, I don't think the government can provide those services that we so badly need. Constitutionally, Section 15(5) obliges government to abolish corruption on corrupt practices and abuse of power. And this very section is what led to the passage of the ICPC Act, first and foremost, in the year 2000, under the Obasanjo administration. Furthermore, Section 24B and E of the Constitution, as amended, obliges citizens to help to enhance the power, the prestige, and the good name of Nigeria, and defend Nigeria and render national service as may be required, and to render, paragraph E more particularly, render assistance to lawful agencies in the maintenance of law and order. So which means, if anybody here in this room at this moment has information about some wrongdoing and you keep it to yourself, you're actually breaching or violating the law. And you are diminishing the capacity of the state to govern, to help us. So I'm trying to say, whistleblower policy or no whistleblower policy, we already have statutory obligations to report crime. Now, never mind all of the other challenges and dynamics about, oh, if I report, they may say I'm the one. Let's leave that for starters. Let's establish that we have a duty. Section 22 of the Constitution obliges the mass media, press, radio, TV, to uphold the fundamental objectives in the chapter and to uphold the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people. And the duty of mass media is to report both to the state and to the public. Now, what that means is that, as Mr. Falana rightly said, usually I hear people saying, oh, President Buhari is not fighting corruption, or is not fighting corruption well, and that he's taking the steps he's taking because of public pressure. The public is doing his job. No government will do anything unless they are pressured. So if the public says, oh, we will not pressure, we will just stand back, and you expect the president, any president, to do things properly, then you are naive. The public has a duty, whether the president is a saint or a villain. The public has a duty to constantly pressure. And as Mr. Falana has rightly told us, every government all over the world, there's compromise. There's compromise. If you report somebody who is very far to the seat of power, quick action will be taken. If you report somebody who is very close to the seat of power, there will be dilatory tactics. It is the public pressure that will make sure that something's happening. So the public is not doing anybody a favor. And when I say public, all of us, we're not doing anybody a favor by reporting crime. It is in our interest to report crime. And when our president or our government does not act as efficiently and effectively as they ought to act, Now, we should not lament. We must keep up the pressure until the right step is taken. This is what happens all over the world. So Nigeria cannot be different. So in other words, I do not take that as a compliment that the public pressured and something happened. That's the job of the public. That's the job of the public. So we need to do it. It's very important. I then go to cite a few provisions. Specifically, you cannot see them very well, that oblige citizens to report crime. First of all, we have in the ICPC Act, Section 23, there's an obligation to report crime. It's there in black and white. The Code of Corporate Governance for banks, discount houses, and it's even called for whistleblowing in the Nigerian banking system. If you are working in a bank, the extant Code of Corporate Governance to which all bankers are signed on to obliges you to report anomalies going on in the operations in the financial services system. The Investment and Securities Act of 2007, Section 26(3), obliges compliance officers to report when they find something wrong. The Terrorism Prevention Act, Section 14(1), obliges citizens to report when they find something wrong. The Public Procurement Act, Section 19(b)(2), obliges civil society and the public to report crime. Government Regulations, Paragraph 409, obliges public servants to report crime when they find something wrong. So already before the whistleblower policy came out at all these provisions oblige Nigerian citizens, when you see something wrong, to report it. I'm trying to guide our perspective so that we don't get carried away by the reward policy of the whistleblower, the reward mechanism of the whistleblower policy. Now, the duty to report crime is very important in states that are weak, like Nigeria, because the inability to improve the rule of law and governance will reinforce underdevelopment. In other words, in a weak state, when you refuse to report crime, you further weaken the state. You further weaken the state. We need to understand that if in America and in Britain or other places they see something wrong and they look away because they have strong institutions, you can't afford to do that here. You got to report it because that's what will strengthen the rule of law. I also admit that the duty to report crime and corruption is enhanced when the state demonstrates positive political will. Like Mr. Fallon has rightly said, and I agree with him, the government of President Buhari has demonstrated positive political will by saying report to us. And he's given a lot of examples of people inside who have unabashedly blown whistles about things that are going wrong. Before, you hardly have that kind of thing happening. Everybody wants to be politically correct. You don't want to hurt the next person. But the truth of the matter is that if you see evil and you keep quiet, you strengthen evil and you weaken good. So that's the reality of the matter. So the duty to report crime and corruption is enhanced when the state demonstrates political will in different ways. The introduction of the whistleblower policy is a demonstration of political will. When anti-corruption agencies are encouraged to hold wrongdoers accountable, that's a demonstration of political will. When you create a dependable disclosure framework that protects those who disclose, is a demonstration of political will. And all these three factors are present under the present environment. Now, usually I find it amusing when people tell me that, oh, there's a lot more corruption going on under this government than before. I said, that is good. Can you give us the information? It cannot be a generalization. A general statement like that does not make any sense. Be specific. Where? If you have that information, put it out there. Now, it may appear as if, oh, we have said that so-so-so minister is stealing money and nothing is happening. I've just said we have a duty to persist until something happens. We have a duty to persist until. But when people make general statements, oh, there's no stealing going on, you just make them, and we ask for specifics, and they can't give specifics. You cannot generalize. You've got to be very specific about what is going on. That is not to say that wrongdoings are not going on or that everything is perfect. Nobody is saying so. But we're saying that if people have information of wrong happening and they choose to generalize it, oh, people in this room right now, they are corrupt. How can you make such a general statement? You want to be specific so that we can know where we focus the searchlight for response. In the absence of demonstrable political will to fight corruption, both the citizen and the mass media constitutional duty cannot be well satisfied. In other words, if the government does not demonstrate political will, what do you want to do with the projector? Leave the projector alone. If the government does not demonstrate political will to fight corruption, I admit that people may feel discouraged, there may be lukewarmness, but that is exactly what we must not allow to happen. You can imagine what would have happened if under the long years of military rule, activists like Mr. Falana, the media and so on, had developed cold feet. We will probably still be under military rule up till now. Okay? So in other words, even when there is no demonstration of political will, our resolve to challenge wrongdoing should not diminish. I agree also that in frustration, sometimes where there is no demonstrable political will, even where there is demonstrable political will and it does not measure up to standard, in frustration, citizens and mass media focus may shift to the government failure so that government gets a lot of bashing. And I'm not saying government should not be bashed. If government does not do well, government should be bashed. Okay? Government should be bashed. I work for government, but why not? I criticize government. So if government does not do what it's supposed to do, government should be criticized. And government should be made to do the right thing, because doing the right thing is in everybody's interest. So what does the whistleblower policy do? This whistleblower policy, it challenges two endemic existing cultures in our environment. The first is the culture of silence. The second is the culture of acquiescence. We all labor under the yoke of the culture of silence. Oh, I don't want to say what I've seen. And Mr. Falana, they will say he's the one, it's Professor Owasanye that allowed them to arrest Mr. Falana because Mr. Falana, blah, 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 blah. People justify, they give reasons for why they should not do what they are supposed to do. Because the truth of the matter is that to steal the kinds of money that we are talking about that comes out, it's not one person. One person can never do it. It's a chain. And along that chain, there's somebody who does not necessarily participate but knows that something wrong is going on. And yet they keep quiet all the time. Because we're not talking about stealing peanuts. We're talking about stealing money that underdevelops an entire country. You know? So there's a culture of silence. Endemic culture of silence. It may have its roots in the fear of Official Secrets Act, the sedition legislation, our cultural beliefs, whatever it is, there is a culture of silence. The second, of course, is the culture of acquiescence, whereby notable thieves are celebrated. And that's a big problem, because it reinforces or it sends the message that crime pays. You know, when people are charged to court or are arrested or are convicted, and the only thing that the king's men can do is to sew uniform with drums and beat drums to follow you to court or to jail, okay, or to receive you therefrom, whichever way it goes, it is sending a message that when you stole well, you stole well. Maybe they are even saying you did not steal enough, okay. So the whistleblower policy tries to at least encourage the whistleblower to come out of their shell and to take a different approach. The communication available by multiple channels, the reward mode, which is open entirely to the whistleblower will say how they want to get paid their money. The confidentiality of the information is guaranteed and is covered in the agreement. The policy does not extend to personal grievances from private contracts or agreement. So you cannot blow the whistle against your business partner that you have a disagreement for which you should go to court to go and solve the problem. Then you go and report to EFCC or ICPC. You say you want to blow whistle. That's not whistle blowing. You are trying to settle personal scores. And you should head to court, get a lawyer, pay a lawyer, and resolve the difference. Because you will be surprised at the kinds of things that we get at PACAC. We get petitions on land disputes. Yes, land disputes, employment contracts, things that are not ready, but it will be somebody has paid for land, there's an argument about boundaries, you say it is corruption, and then you bring it to a presidential advisory committee against corruption and all that. So, and if you send it back and say, sorry, go to the civil court, they say this government is not fighting corruption. The next day you see them on Twitter or Facebook, the government is not fighting corruption. You send them petition, they ignore it. But nobody asks what sort of petition did you send. Is it on land, divorce, marriage or something? And you'll be surprised, all manner of things come. Okay? All manner of things come. Then, of course, there is a penalty for malicious communication. Against this penalty is in the policy, but it's also in the law. The ICPC Act, for example, has a provision, I forget which section now. If you mislead the agency, because you see, every investigation costs money to prosecute. If you send the police, EFCC, ICPC, NDLEA, any law enforcement agency on a wild goose chase, there is no foundation for it, and they find out that you did not act from a genuine mistake, of course the law says they should prosecute you, because you have spent money for something that had no basis or foundation. Very quickly, what impact has the whistleblower policy made to date? My data here is not correct. I don't know, I think I copied, because I updated this. There is 5,000 whistles as at the end of October this year, 5,000 something. Out of that, about 300 and something thousand, as 3,000 something was by telephone call. Remind me to give you an updated one, especially for this part of the breakdown. What are the kinds of things that were covered? There have been whistles on contract inflation, ghost workers, payment of an approved fund, embezzlement of salary, diversion of excess crude account, excess crude oil money, improper reduction of financial penalty, diversion of fund meant for distribution to a group of people, putting money in personal account, that is, people get government money and put it in personal account to earn interest, non-remittance of pension fund or health insurance, failure to implement project for which money has been provided, embezzlement of funds received from donor agencies, embezzlement of funds meant for personal emolument, violation of TSA, you see that's 56, it's one of the highest. Violation of inland revenue of VAT, non-procurement of equipment that is required for safety, money laundering and diversion of funds, illegal sale of government assets, diversion of revenue, internally generated revenue, financial misappropriation, concealment of bailout fund, mismanagement of microfinance bank, illegal recruitment, violation of public procurement act. It goes on. These are specifics against agencies. Let me say, in conclusion, Nigeria recognizes that rogue governments previously oppressed and impoverished their people by corruption, and we all need to fight that. But when the government is showing signs of fidelity and responsibility and transparency like Buhari's government, we cannot use the same old practices to continue to discourage. That's why nobody is saying the anti-corruption effort is perfect. It's not. And we should not celebrate ourselves that the public is the one that pressured the government to take action. The public has a duty to take action. As I've said previously, sometimes my very close friends will tell me, oh, Prof, this anti-corruption effort is not going very well. Oh. You people are losing the cases. Then I ask them, is that a personal loss to me? If all the cases are lost, let's just assume, have I lost anything? Does it affect my health? It doesn't affect my health. And I don't think it affects Professor Sage or Mr. Falana. It's not a personal loss. It's a collective loss for all of us. It's a collective loss for all of us. So we must see this, that we're not doing anybody a favor by doing what we ought to do responsibly.